Hey everybody, this is Perch. We talk about comics costing too much, comics and distribution. So one angle to all this is that comics at their current cost is they're too expensive for the direct market, and they actually make more sense for the newsstand, which is it's kind of a weird take. Now bear in mind. So my personal view on all this is that comics the prices just have to come down, but it's hard because you've now built up an economy and everything else around that price point, but the price point is just it's excessive for kind of the value to pages to comics and what people have going into a recession. It's just it doesn't fit the right angles. And I know people hate the manga comparison, but we can also compare against Scholastic and other graphic novels that fall, off their initial price. And you can get a fairly large, collection of stuff, meaning 128 pages or more. Sometimes it's not colored, sometimes it's more for kids, like say Dogman is, or sometimes it's just older. But here's a weird part about trade paperbacks and the concept of older. And I got into this argument with somebody as they were saying, I was saying, trade paperbacks are by their nature older. The new comics came out, 6 to 8 months before the trade paperback came out. It's already old. And the concept the guy was trying to come back to me on was, well, no, there's new trade paperbacks. There's people who trade rate and the release day of a trade paperback matters to them because they want to be one of the first to pick up the trade. And I'll just tell you, for 25 odd years of doing this, I've never had anyone come in on release day of a trade. Now, they've come in if it's an omnibus that's in limited supply, or there's some kind of gimmick attached to it, or it's autographed, sure. But just as a whole, it's like, oh, the trade paperback for the second volume of Bendis's Avengers with John Romita Jr. is coming out. No, nobody, that never happens. People don't come in on launch day trying to get trades. They'll come in on launch day trying to get the floppies, but not the trades. So I think trades by their nature are older. But anyway, my point in all this is that you've got things that are 128 pages, 256 pages that are being sold once kind of the initial cost goes down. So even like trades from Marvel, what typically happens is they've got a cover price, and then relatively quickly they drop in cost. If they don't sell out relatively fast, many places, many of the larger bookshops will drop the price. Barnes and Noble regularly do a 25 to 40% off, in addition to whatever, like the 20% you get off on your Barnes and Noble card if you have one of those. At any rate, many of them settle into the kind of $7.99 to $10 price zone for 128 to 256 pages. And if you think about that, a 22-page comic can go for $4.99, so $5. See, that's basically $2 or $3 short of something that is far bigger and collected, and usually has a little bit of a stiffer cover and a spine to it that is going to feel a little bit more substantial. I mean, that's just that the economics are off, I guess, is my point. But okay, putting that aside, you can go into a Target or a Walmart or bigger box store, and you will see collectibles. These my daughter's loving the little, like, you buy a mystery bag or mystery box, and inside is a some little squishy toy or whatever, based on My Hero Academia or a video game property, and it's usually $5 to $6, and they sell fairly well. That product sells in that zone. And so it got me thinking that if the $5 comic book, not all of them, not the 160 odd a month that Marvel and DC put out combined, but if some of them were in the big box store, they probably might do better, or at least the price point would be a little bit more aligned to some of this collectible stuff. Now, it changes comics into a different category, and I think a negative category, because they would have to beef up the idea of collectability with the book, and there's just a bunch of things that have to go. So you kind of have to cross your eyes, and I think for many comic collectors, probably most of the people listening to this channel, it would be just a bastardization of the entire comic. But it could work there. I guess my bigger point is, increasingly, the price point of the comics and what they're selling is bad for the direct market. It's just not something they can sustain. And I've been surprised. I've been going into shops in Texas as I'm preparing to, get my own plans moving and running. And, I'm surprised by how many shops have no new comics. Just none. Or very, very few. There's a comic shop I went in recently called Geek Out. It's down near Fort Worth. I went into a comic shop in Arlington, and in both cases they had new comics, but not many. They were very visible. They were ordering very, very light. They had clearly boosted up more on games and more on back issues, more on collections, and more on the experience. And in both cases, I talked to the shop owners. They seemed happy, and that sounds, yeah, trivial. Who cares really about that? But a happy shop owner is a shop owner that's likely to stay in business and keep going because they're enjoying what they're doing. And in both cases, they cited the grind of the new comics, just that it's a lot of money, and to carry a huge volume, like you go back in time 10, 15 years, and comic shops would regularly have a massive shelf on the wall. It would take out one side of the comic shop. And the Pacific Northwest, most comic shops were like that, where you had just one long wall, and you'd have up there hundreds of comics, or not hundreds, sorry, thousands of comics up on that wall. But increasingly over the last 2 years, I'm seeing less and less and less. And keep in mind, what we're reading on The Beat and other places is that American comics are doing better than ever, and it's up yours haters and all this kind of stuff. But the evidence in front of your own eyes, again, numbers are numbers, and the comics could be selling somewhere and all the rest. But consistently now, not just here but everywhere, the same story keeps coming true, which is the new comics are being diminished, the back issues are increasing, the collectible side of things, trades, omnibuses has ticked up, manga has ticked up, the other random graphic novels, indies have ticked up, but the traditional new comic business is being definitely tamped down. And another factor in all this is that you got you have places like Midtown in Manhattan, or you have these very large shops, Golden Age Collectibles over there in Seattle, and they have tons of new comics. And they also have a robust, mailing system, ordering system. And so what's happening, I think, is that where the direct market's concerned, is a lot of the comics are just being slowly but surely, the new comics, filtered to those bigger stores. They're in effect the Targets and the Walmarts of the comic book direct market, and they're just all going that direction. And so if you want new comics, you just order through there, you get a discount as a buyer, and that's where you go to get your new stuff, because your new stuff is a little less important to you than it used to be. And kind of to what I said at the beginning, your desire to get it on launch day is diminishing, because with it in a world of heavily decompressed comics, nothing is happening. And so, getting it on Wednesday is, you can wait till Friday, especially you're going to get a 40% discount and you can get it on Friday. Yeah, it's better to do that. I don't know, by the way, if anyone's offering a 40% discount. I had heard some of the bigger stores were, but that there's no way that can hold either. Usually it's like 10%, or you get something thrown in, free shipping or bags and boards or something. Anyway, but that's the world that I think we're steering toward, and I just think the product is off. So anyway, here's a mail from a viewer that's kind of saying the same thing. So let me read it to you. It says, my LCS, the Bookery Fantasy, that's a good shop, recently got out of new comics. They had been in business for 38 years and advertised themselves as Ohio's largest comic book store, but they decided to go into games, collectibles, back issues, and pulps. He said, I sent him this post, I'm not sure which post, asking about Perch and Zach's videos. Oh, sorry. He writes it here. Having gotten out new comics, do you have a reaction to this video and this rebuttal? And I'm not going to click on it because I'm recording literally while I'm doing this. So I don't know. I've got these this video and the rebuttal. So I don't know. What was it? Was this Zach rebuttaled me? I don't know. Here is his response. By the way, every time there is some kind of rebuttal, I get people showing up who are like, just say the nastiest shit. I will say, and no, that's not say, people are responsible for their own people. Or sorry, for themselves. They're not responsible for their people, for the people who watch. You're responsible for your family, you're responsible for your kids, you're responsible for literally your people. You're not responsible for random viewers who come in. And I do stand by that. And I know that goes at odds with what a lot of people say, but like if somebody watches my video and they go out and they're an asshole, that's on them. And same thing's true with anybody. That's fair is fair. I think unless you are literally encouraging people to say, hey, go out there and I need you to go attack somebody, which I haven't, certainly haven't heard from him. I know that there are other people, there are certainly other people who have done that, but definitely not him. But ultimately, you're responsible. You're grown adults in theory, and you're responsible for yourself and yourself alone is the way I view it. But I do wish that every time these people come over and act like complete jackasses. But anyway, Bookery Fantasy. Here's his response. Meaning, this is the response from the LCS Bookery Fantasy. New comics are too expensive for too little entertainment. $4 for a 10-minute read. In a few months, you can buy them for $1 in back issue bins. Besides, our own distributor will sell them online to you, competing with us, their customer, at 40% off cover. Why buy from a retail store when you can order them online for less? Yes. With collectibles, we are by far the best shop in the state, but new comics you can get anywhere. And I think that's kind of the point. You can get them anywhere. It's hard to curate. Like if you're a comic shop, you can curate your back issue stock. You can get your collectibles online. You can arrange signings. You can do lots of things. And I do think it's hard if you're a large comic shop to have zero new comics. And I think most people are not going to go to zero. I think they're just going to dial it severely down. Because if you want to have signings or you want to have, other things in your shop, you're going to need some new stock. So another way you could go about it is that, the comic shop can just buy these things on demand when they need them and just trust that, if the comic sells out, then they're out on that opportunity. But that's probably not going to happen very often. But in general, no, I think that comic store is right. And that's what I keep saying. I think the cost of the comic is a problem. And note in this, in the response, he said, too expensive for too little entertainment, $4 for a 10-minute read. The comic shop owner is not saying it's, woke shitty content. That may be implied, but it is fundamentally, it's the cost and it's a distribution model. It's that, look, new comics, if they are available everywhere, then why wouldn't you order direct from the distributor or direct from a larger shop if you're a customer, get that discount and call it and then support your local comic shop with back issues and games and other things you might want or conversation, whatever it happens to be. I think back issue, many comic shops that are going this direction are going to have to think of other business models. They're providing, in theory, entertainment places to hang out. They need something else. And you're seeing a lot of comic shops scrambling around. Somebody beat me to it. I saw a place that's opening up in, I think, Oklahoma, and they're advertising that they're a comic shop, back issues, collectibles, no new comics, but they're bar. They've got their liquor license, and you can go in there and you can drink and you can hang out and you can talk to people. And fuck yeah, that absolutely any day long. But that is, I think people are scrambling around trying to find some other business models. But new comics have become an overpriced commodity. There's nothing unique or special about them from the direct market standpoint. I do take his point very seriously. The distributor itself is fighting them on it. It's like you can't have a B2B2C business where the middle B, in this case, Diamond, Luna, or et cetera, are turning around and offering their own direct to consumer, taking out the comic shop. That's a big problem. That's how you destroy the value chain that exists between the businesses. And we've seen this happen before where you go direct to consumer. And what happens is, you erode the direct market, or you erode that B, that retailer B. I think I screwed it up earlier. First B being that. Anyway, you probably take my point. Anyway, if you erode that, you take away your lead generation and your business plummets. And it's happened over and over and over. There's very few direct to consumer businesses in that way that have worked. When they do, they tend to be point sales. They tend to be non-predictive sales. So meaning not a product every month like that. It's a problem. People often point to Amazon. Amazon is still a retailer. It's just a different form of one. It's still participating in that value chain. Why doesn't more people just buy TVs and other things like directly? Why didn't Samsung open up a online store and just sell the things directly through them? Well, in many cases they do, but they get very, very little business because that ecosystem is important. And so if you de-incentivize the retailer from carrying your stuff, it tends to hurt you. The business does not all flow your direction. There's lots of books, and this is like a classic, by the way, MBA course, topic of why the value chain exists and what you have to do with it. Because a lot of people will say, well, just take out that middle group, and then the distributor can talk directly to the customer, and they'll save money for the customers. Customers like, yeah, I'm paying 20% less. This is great. Except that chain contains other things that the distributor has to then set itself up to do the marketing, to do the promotion, to do lead gen, to do all these other things to keep the ecosystem healthy. And they're not set up to do that, and they don't. And it winds up cannibalizing their own business. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. There's literally 80 years of history of businesses that do this, and many, many courses and books written about why this is a problem. But anyway, comics are too expensive. I'm going to have to go click on that rebuttal now, but they are too expensive. At their core, they're too costly. And I've used this example before, and whenever I mention it, I always say, come address this in the comments. I mean, people who really want to argue the point. I did the same thing with comics need to be more places in order to be discovered. I use the example King of Spies. King of Spies was an amazing, amazing comic. It was great. Lots of people loved it. Reviews were really high. Why didn't it sell 100,000 copies? Why? It was good. It was good content. Is the argument that there's too much bad content, so it's poisoning the entire well? That's a silly argument. Honestly, it is. I can take that argument out very, very easily. So what is going on? I agree, and I've said this before as a fan. I agree. A lot of the content in the comics is just not interesting. They're telling decompressed, very slow, very dull stories in a lot of cases. In addition to the social stuff, I mean, they're just forgetting about that. I mean, like if you look at the Amazing Spider-Man, when I did that comparison, there's not a lot of quote unquote social stuff in there. It's just dull. It's like 20 pages before we get Spider-Man, and it's like Spider-Man Peter moping around on his phone, sleeping, eating. Like there's nothing to that comic. I like Zeb Wells a great deal. That thing was boring. I saw some people like Spider-Man's gone full woke. They never explained how, but it did go full boring. So in that world, yeah, I mean, charging $5.99 or what $6.99, $8.99 in some cases for anniversary issues for a comic where people are sitting around doing nothing. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a big problem. I mean, why would you do that? Take your $8 and then go to your local Applebee's and you can watch miserable people eating food. See, I'm mixing it up. It's not always Arby's. I mean, you can. There's plenty of. It's funny because reading a comic book feels like in a lot of cases walking to the mall, sitting on a bench in the middle and just watching people, passively shop for clothes and buy food at the food court. That's the entertainment value in a lot of cases of comics. It's just, and you're paying $8 for this service. It doesn't work. And yeah, I mean, 5 minutes of reading or whatever the comic store owner said, T says 10 minutes. That's generous. Honestly, in decompressed pages where they're reusing the same art and panels over and over and over to, do kind of thematic, pacing of a story. I don't know. Most comics I'm in and out in under 5 minutes. I read fast, but 20 pages, 30 seconds a page, it doesn't take that long in a lot of cases. It's quick. I mean, this is a problem. The comics, and not all of them, but it is a problem. And it's a problem where that does need to get fixed. But when you do have good comics, when you have things that are coming out that people agree are really great, just great reads, again, like King of Spies, which was a great comic, it's not selling significantly more than the boring ass comic right next to it on the shelf. And that should set off alarm bells. Because if you just fix the content, that's not going to do the trick. You're going to have to get comics more places, and you're going to have to lower the price. I mean, again, I love King of Spies. How much? It was a 4-issue series, I think, 4 or 5. Anyway, but all in, you're talking about $20, tax and everything. I think, if I'm doing my math right. Maybe no less than that. But anyway, that's a lot. Bluntly, that's just a lot of money. Even though I love that comic and I love the creators, the writer and the artist, I do. They're great, awesome people. That's a heavy price tag. We are absolutely going into a recession, but dollars are going to be tight. This can't hold. And again, you compare it to one reason manga is doing well. Everybody wants to point out the politics. Sure, the cost is also the distribution. The cost is also a massive factor. Look, if you go and you buy, I mean, this is why people are casually buying manga, and in some cases hating it. People will go to Barnes and Noble. I've had this conversation with people at Barnes and Noble a lot. You can also see it with your own eyes. And people will buy tankobon versions of things that they have no idea what's inside because there's not a good way to find out some of this stuff. Yeah, some people are buying Demon Slayer and Spy X Family and other things that there's a lot of commentary about and you know about, sure. But there's also people like picking up this, I'll try this Dick Fight Island. Why not? I don't know, sounds funny. If the price is $7.99 and you're holding in your hand something that's big and meaty, because it's Dick Fight Island, right? Anyway, it's like 100 and some odd pages, 200 pages, this nice thick book. Then I mean, you're almost, your brain is going, even if it sucks, it's only like $7. That's what you think. Meanwhile, if you're holding a very thin floppy comic at $5-6, that's 20 pages and super thin, your brain also goes like, wow, that's a lot of money for this thin comic. It just does. Again, that has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with whatever the fuck Heather Antos got up to this afternoon. It's just expensive. It feels expensive. And on top of that, if you have to go to a comic shop, and many comic shops are noping out of this entire process, then you understand the chain. You've got a problem. Inside that comic could be the most amazing, great story today. But I would argue that even if you got Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man #1 or Jim Lee's X-Men, those classic issues that sold millions of copies, or Rob Liefeld's New Mutants #1, or sorry, X-Force, I guess was the one. That sold tons and tons of copies. They're not going to sell that amount of copies in shops today. Distribution's broken. I mean, Jim Lee's #1 X-Men would be, if it was going out on the shelf today, it'd be going out at like $8.99. It would be an expensive book. And even though it looks great, the art pops and everything else, and everybody loves Jim Lee, it wouldn't sell anywhere close to what it sold back then. Because of the cost and because of the distribution. Same exact comic. It's just a problem. Anyway, thank you very much for checking in on your shop. I appreciate that. And always good to get some other perspectives. Let me know yours in the comments below. And thanks for listening.